All right, everybody. We are here for the final yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Understandably, we are upset with how this whole thing went down. We are upset with how that final drive went down. There are many drives that I was upset with that I can easily point out and say that at the end of the day, this is what's going to boil down to in the court of public opinion, is that Josh Allen is a superstar athlete who can play quarterback. Tua is not a superstar athlete who plays quarterback. And at the end of the day, one is better than the other. One team made more plays than the other. And that's gonna be how it's gonna go down. Miami is still in the playoffs. Now they have to go to Kansas City for a rematch with the Chiefs in below freezing temperatures, as the Miami Dolphins lose this game 21-14 to Buffalo. The reason it hurts so bad is because it looked like Miami had this game won. All they had to do was hold on in the fourth quarter, and they couldn't do it. Special teams absolutely exploded. It imploded, just letting them run for a punt return touchdown to tie the game. And then after that, they were so decimated at edge that you have Melvin Ingram trying to cover Dalton Kincaid, which obviously was never going to work. Miami has run out of ammunition at this point. There's really nothing left that they can do. Tyreek Hill kept leaving the game because he was getting hurt. His ankle is obviously all messed up. Here come the Buffalo Bills fans already getting ready to rip us a new one. Go ahead, guys. We deserve it. Miami is a fraud football team once again. There's really nothing else to discuss about it. We had all these superstar players, and at the end of the day, all these superstar players, we begged for Jalen Ramsey to cover Stefon Diggs, and only in those few moments that he wasn't covering him, he ended up getting beat. He ended up beating Eli Apple. And then, even then, Jalen Ramsey was not perfect. There was one play that should have been a touchdown to Stefon Diggs, because he just did a little wiggle that made Jalen Ramsey absolutely break his ankles. And if that had been a touchdown, we would have been just tearing our hair out saying we got what we wanted. Jalen Ramsey covering with Stefon Diggs, and it wouldn't have worked. So, and here we come. We're already talking about it. We're going to clean house, fire everybody. Okay, so sure, 2 years in, we'll fire Mike McDaniel, I guess, and we'll fire Chris Greer, and we'll fire Stephen Ross, and we'll burn the stadium to the ground. All the comments. Tua might not be that guy. Offense stalled in the second half. I mean, yeah, that's part of it, but it wasn't all Tua throwing footballs. I'm going to make my case. I'm going to be wrong in the court of public opinion. And at this point, I don't really care. And then I'll let you and Michael get your words in, Eric. Tua had his good moments in the first half, and then in the second half, everything just seemed to absolutely disappear. They had Devon Achane running the football. It was working. They were using Jeff Wilson playing physical football, which I had been begging Miami to do this entire time, and it was working. And then they went away from that. That I blame on Mike McDaniel, not on Tua. Tua had some misses, to be sure, but those are also throws that in previous games earlier in the season, those are plays that Tyreek Hill comes down with. And we're looking at Tyreek and Tua saying, wow, what a duo, what a combination. They're able to help each other and they make amazing plays. That didn't happen this time. There were at least 3 plays where I can look at Tyreek and say, the ball got to you. Why didn't you catch it? There was a score right at the end there that it turned into pass interference on the Bills. But if Tyreek had caught that football, he easily could have gone to the house on that one, and that would have been the game-tying touchdown. So Tua ends up losing Tyreek because of an injury. He had to go out. He has to find somebody. I was looking around the field. The only thing I really saw that he could have gotten it to, realistically, was a check down to Braxton Berrios, which is not going to help anybody. You had Chase Claypool in double coverage, and you have to understand the game. There's not a lot of time left. Tua has to get the ball somewhere, and Chase Claypool, we've been waiting to see if he was going to do something. He did not. And it ended up being an interception for Taylor Rapp. Tua is not the reason Miami lost this game. I truly believe that. He's also not the reason they won this game. They could have won this game. This game was working for Miami when they were running the football. The defense was playing solid, and then everything just fell apart. I see a lot of people talking about that he stared down Claypool. Okay, well, again, You have to get the ball out quickly in this offense. That's how it's designed. And again, you don't have Tyreek Hill. You don't have Jalen Waddle. Your options at that point in the game, reminder, are Braxton Berrios, Cedric Wilson, Chase Claypool. Who are we looking at to say you're the guy who's going to make the play? Tua doesn't trust those guys. And we've been given reason many times not to trust them. Tua fired one to Cedric Wilson. It got broken up. Tua threw another pass earlier this game to Cedric Wilson. That got broken up. Cedric Wilson can't get a separation from the defense, which means that he has to be able to make a play and be able to just fight through the catch. What can you do, man? What can you do? I see a lot of people saying that I'm blaming everybody except Tua. I didn't say that Tua didn't make mistakes, guys. Tua had some misses. But if you're going to look at this team and talk about, once again, putting a team on your back, then the only one who can do it was Josh Allen. And he did it again. He used his arm. He used his legs. He did everything that the top 5 NFL athlete is supposed to do. He ran the ball. That last drive that really put Miami on their heels. It was what, third and 15, and Josh Allen ran the ball. He ran the ball. That's what he does. It's what he does best. Tua can't do that. He will never be able to do that. It's not his game. And if you're looking for Josh Allen, if you're looking for a guy like that, then by all means, we'll keep waiting for another 20 years for Miami to luck into another generational talent who can run and throw like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. There's a reason there's only been 3 of those guys in the last 20 years. They don't exist, bro. They don't exist. Now everybody's going to use this as a referendum on Tua saying he doesn't deserve an extension. By that logic, 90% of the quarterbacks in this league don't deserve an extension. It hurts right now, but we're looking at this in the moment. Justin Herbert should not have gotten an extension, right? I think everybody would agree with that. Justin Herbert doesn't deserve an extension based on the same criteria. What has Justin Herbert accomplished? I'm gonna go. I'll go ahead and I'll pose the question to you guys. Did Justin Herbert deserve the extension that he got?
Of course.
Why?
Because
he's bigger and stronger and faster than Tua.
Because there's a lot of problems in LA. And while Justin Herbert is prone to big turnovers, and Justin Herbert has only made the playoffs, I believe, once, and that resulted in a catastrophic collapse to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay, wait. So you saying he doesn't deserve the extension?
No, I'm saying you give him the extension. He was.
Who are you? You're talking about Tua or Justin Herbert?
I'm talking about Justin Herbert.
Okay, so
they had the collapse to the Jaguars. So yeah, has he won in the playoffs? No. Has he won in big moments? No. Does he turn it over in opportune times? Yes. But also when you're looking for a guy that you can win with, you strike out at quarterback a lot more than you hit. And Justin Herbert has a lot of things that you hit with. And if you get him a quarterback who's not functionally inept, like Staley, then may have a chance. He has old weapons. Listen, I'd rather have Tua than Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert I don't think is the problem in LA at this point.
Okay, so you just said that do you think that you just said that you prefer Tua over Herbert? Does Tua deserve an extension?
Yes.
Okay, well,
too much
one guy on my side. Eric, you look like you want to eat me alive.
Let me shake my magic 8-ball in a week after I see what happens in the wild card game. That's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. My inclination right now is I would tag Tua. I'm not sitting here saying that he shouldn't be on the team next year, but my inclination would be tag before an extension. And listen, Tua can be really good. He can be great. He can be fantastic. We've seen it. But I do think that there's something to be said when you look at this team and you look at the big moments, you look at specific throws when it's, you gotta have it. And for some reason, he doesn't come through when it matters. And I know that there's more, and I know that it takes more than just one player to throw and catch a football. I'm aware of that. Tua cannot throw the ball, run and catch it and go into the end zone. I understand that. But the issue with Tua is that you have to put a perfect team around him. It requires you to be a team builder of the highest order around him. And if I'm honest with you, I mean, I really thought this was the year on paper, roster-wise. I thought this was the team that was good enough to do that for them, but injuries happened and things of that nature. And I look at I look at moments in this game. I look at first and 15 right after a false start by Teron Armstead. I believe that was when it was still a tie game right after the punt return. Tua throws a low ball to Tyreek Hill, one that looked like he caught it on first glance, I will admit, but a ball that was low. And then again, he comes out 7 minutes to go in the game. He's got Tyreek deep over the middle, too high, missed him. When you combine that with the fact that Tua can't extend plays outside of the pocket, he can't really evade pressure. He's got to have a quick release. The reason why the offense is what it is number one, because the offensive line is banged up, at least in part. Number two, it has to be a quick release offense like this because they know that on long developing plays, if the pressure does get in, Tua's not going to make anyone miss. He's got great movement in the pocket in terms of those quick movements, moving up, kind of evading. When it's kind of like straight line pressure, but when it comes time to get out of the pocket and move, he's not that guy. We saw it with Josh Allen, and I'm not saying that a quarterback has to be Josh Allen to be successful in the NFL. Yeah, I know. I'm putting it on Tua and Mike McDaniel, who did abandon the run for apparently no good reason in the second half. I look at this game and I look at Tua, and I said it. This was his game. This was when you got to have it on third down, you got to convert. When the chips are down, you have to make the plays. And there are plays that are in this game that Tua could have controlled, that he did have control, that would have been momentum shifters. I'm not saying that he has to hit on every single play all the time, but man, it would be nice if he just came through with one of those momentum shifting plays. When was the last time you saw Tua make a play and you were like, that's the dagger right there? He doesn't. Well, he hasn't.
Miami has not had that been in that position. Like it's never been one of. It's very rarely ever been. It's when Miami's wins have come scoring up 2-3 touchdowns at a time. It's never. And then Aaron Andrews very very eloquently mentions just the Chargers game. That was the one
defense
game
put
of the
that
year.
one away.
Miami still had to get the lead back.
No, Tua did come through. Tua did come through there. I'll give them that. I'll give them that.
So it's not. But that was a fully healthy team. Everybody was there. To be fair,
yeah,
the Chargers also had everybody there. So it's.
Well,
yeah, and I'm not going to be this person that says that, I mean, I don't know what the result of this game would have been with a fully healthy Dolphins team. Do I think that there's issues with the mental toughness of this team? I absolutely do, because I think that we've got evidence that points in that direction at this point. And that evidence points right at Mike McDaniel. Because first and foremost, the job of a head football coach is to have your team up and ready to play. And Miami, before they really got out of the gates here, before they got a couple momentum shifting plays on defense, they came out flat in this game offensively. That's Mike McDaniel's unit. He's got to come out stronger than that. He's got to have his guys ready, man. And I get it. The defense was a melted shell of itself. There was nothing left. Josh Allen had 3 picks or 3 turnovers. The defense did exactly what they needed to do. They made Buffalo's offense all about Josh Allen, because when you make Buffalo's offense all about Josh Allen just put the football all over the place. He turns the ball over. They got them to do that. And then I don't even want to get into special teams. Danny Crossman is a guy that I just have no idea why he's been employed, really, since last season. It's not just tonight that makes me say that. It's just a total failure all over the place. And I wanna say that there's a light at the end of the tunnel here. But right now it just looks like that light at the end of the tunnel is another oncoming train getting ready to run over the Miami Dolphins. And it's just I don't know how to get up for next week's game. I just don't. Like I got up for today's game. By the end of it, I was ready. I was pumped. I talked myself into the division. I am not going to be talking myself into that game next week.
It's kind of scary how we ended up being 11-6, and we're looking at this team as a failure. Like, this is exactly what we were predicting earlier when we did our before the season started
Context
predictions.
matters.
Yes, context matters, bro. Yes, context absolutely matters. But at the same time, this is exactly how we expected it to go in a way. 11-6. This is what the record we were expecting to lose to other teams, and we beat them. And yet somehow, because we couldn't get this done, we are looking at this as a complete and total failure. We still have to go to Kansas City now, get a rematch with Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's going to go well for Miami. And it's also part of the fact that the sad reality is Miami's decimated. Miami is decimated. Tyreek Hill is hobbled. Jalen Waddle is hobbled. You don't really have a reliable third option. We literally just saw that. Tua doesn't have anybody reliable to throw to. Look back at that last play that ended the game. Who did you look at? Who could you see? Did you see anybody he could throw the ball to? If it were Josh Allen, here's Josh Allen. You know what Josh Allen would have done on that play? He would have pulled it down and ran for 16 yards, because he can do that. He can do that. That's part of his game. Tua can't. That's the reality. Tua cannot do that. He's not that kind of athlete. When you get somebody like Tua, who is a Drew Brees-ish quarterback, that's what you have to understand. I keep saying this. Understand, you have the pros and the cons of the type of quarterback that you have picked up. Drew Brees was an elite quarterback for many, 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 many years, but you never saw him running around with the football. He always had to find somebody open, and usually he had somebody he could rely on to get the job done. You didn't think Drew Brees had Jimmy Graham that he relied on like his bread and butter for years at a time. Tua had that in Tyreek Hill. And as much as we want to talk about Tua had bad throws for Tyreek had bad drops. He had bad drops all season. And we just kind of gloss over it because he's Tyreek Hill. And you don't mess with Tyreek Hill. The same thing goes for a lot of players, making like crucial moments, not just like, oh, this is a thing that happened. This is crucial.
Lewis, let me just ask one real question, because I think that it's important here, and I think that it touches on something. Do you think a Drew Brees type quarterback can win in 2024? And I like, it's a question I've been wrestling with, and I'm not sure.
I've said, and this is a sad reality, long-term winning, you kind of have to have a Josh Allen. You have to have a dual threat quarterback. I do believe that. Long-term success, you need a dual threat quarterback. Maybe part of me is feeling like that I don't want to accept the new reality. I want to, because there's a lot of quarterbacks in this league that are very successful, and they're pocket quarterbacks. They're not like Josh Allen. There's a reason. I keep saying this. There's only 3 guys based on the definition of put the team on their backs that can do it. If we're talking about that, it's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson. That's it. Nobody else. Nobody else can do that. And I see Cap for Life talking about Michael Penix. No, you got to
much.
Yeah, no.
Got 2 ACL tears is not your mobile guy.
Yeah. So this is you got to be like acting like that's the thing. And I see so many people just looking at it. This is a referendum on Tua. This whole game was about Tua from start to finish, right? And I don't know, man. I'm not going to just dump Tua because of what happened in this game. I'm not. Because like it or not, Tua is the best quarterback that we've had since Dan Marino. Bar none. Nobody else comes close. Not even Chad Pennington. Because nobody else that we've seen since Marino can do the things that we've seen Tua do in this offense. Nobody. So if we're willing to dump him already because we got our feelings hurt by something that happened here, we might as well just never watch football again. For real. And that's the honest truth. We may as well never watch football again. We might as well just wash our hands.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good idea right about now. I'm not going to lie.
Oh. Yeah. I'm not even thinking, you're thinking much more big picture coming into the post-game show than where I was at. Yeah, I was furiously angry, trying not to throw remotes or anything against the wall. And it's obviously incredibly disappointing. Listen, Buffalo, for as many chances as Miami looks at that they squandered, Buffalo also had a few. As we mentioned, the Stefon Diggs where he just embarrassed Jalen Ramsey and put him on skates. Or when Josh Allen threw that horrendous first pick to Eli Apple where Gabe Davis made a move and was open across the middle. So if Josh Allen throws that one, that's another big missed opportunity. Turning it over in the red zone when Christian Wilkins just stole the ball from him, something that even though they won is going to haunt Josh Allen for some time as much as he just loathes the very existence of Christian Wilkins. But there were missed opportunities from the Dolphins. And listen, as y'all were talking about context, you don't blame injuries for the loss tonight. I'm sure Buffalo would love to have Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano out there. I know Miami has more injuries than that, more substantial injuries than that. But listen, it was a disappointing finish. Still in the playoffs. I'm a bit more bullish. I said it in the pregame show. I unfortunately predicted Buffalo to win. It was closer than I predicted it was going to be. Thank the good Lord. But I said the silver lining is if the Dolphins do indeed lose this game, I don't hate the matchup with Kansas City. Even in this current iteration of the Dolphins where, you hope to get Jalen back or Raheem back. Hopefully Andrew Van Ginkel is okay because that just kept.
I doubt it.
I mean, yeah.
I sincerely doubt it.
When you lose Jalen and then you lose Bradley and then you lose Van Ginkel and then you have a guy like Agba who's a pass rush specialist who now has to be on the field during rushing downs, you have really no one to go after the passer other than the interior or going to the second level. But I don't hate that matchup. I am worried about the cold. I am worried about how our game plays in the cold. But that's a very vulnerable team. The thing that may scare me even more than that game is unless Houston is able to upset Buffalo, to get to the Super Bowl, you have to go on the road to Kansas City, then on the road to Baltimore, and then Lord only knows in the AFC Championship, which is one hellacious set. And if you're looking at the big picture, the thing that has to scare you isn't as much what to do about Tua, but this was the best window, or this is the best window for Miami when you look at the guys who have to get paid along with the guys who are currently getting paid and how this roster construction is going to look. And when you have a dipshit owner who loses a first and a third round pick for you from his meddling, yeah, not ideal. Where you could sure use another first rounder out on the field right there tonight, but it's incredibly disappointing, and I understand all the folks who have been emotional about McDaniel and about Tua on all over Twitter and in the comments and so forth. But there's a reason that you don't make big sweeping decisions. What are we, 20 minutes, 30 minutes outside of a very emotional loss, a very costly loss, to now that the Patriots are dead and buried and the Jets are still the Jets and will always be the Jets, hands down your biggest rival, a team where, Josh Allen's had great success against Miami and it's a killer. And then you have them up 14-7 in the fourth quarter, just got a critical turnover. And all you have to do is have a legacy sustainable drive, go down and get points, go down and get a damn field goal. And then it was the backbreaker, was the tying 95-yard touchdown where there wasn't a block in the back. There wasn't a hold. He just blew straight. There wasn't even a missed tackle. He just blew straight through everybody, 95 yards to the house. It's brutal. It's a brutal, brutal loss. But for me,
if there's anybody who needs to be fired, is Danny Crossman. I've been calling for that for the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'll set up his ND profile. I don't care. I've got time on my hands.
Like, I don't know how he managed to get retained. The special teams for Miami has been awful ever since Crossman took over for Darren Rizzi. Awful. Just absolutely awful. So if there's anything Mike McDaniel needs to redo, it's his special teams room. He needs to find somebody else who can be the special teams coordinator, because Danny Crossman ain't it. Like, I feel like I've lost count of how many times we've been looking at the special teams with a suspect eye. And if it's very possible, we want to get mad at Tua all we want. It's very possible we're not even having this discussion if Crossman just had his special teams guys in position to stop a simple punt. For real. That's all he had to do. Just make one tackle. Even if he gets stopped halfway down the field, fine. You let him run all the way down there. And we were still winning the game at that point.
The only thing that I would protest there, and you're right. Let me preface that by saying you're right. 14 points was never going to win this game. The offense would have had to score more points at some point. 14 is not going to win you this game. It just never was.
It wouldn't have. No, but you know what? All the momentum with that punt return touchdown, all the momentum was Buffalo. All of it. Like, you knew as soon as that touchdown happened, you were like, Buffalo's going to win this game, because they had all the momentum.
No, listen, I called the game at that point, but I mean, that's just the nature of the way that I watch sports. I will fire and extend players, or I will cut and extend players, play to play, so I'm that guy. I'm fine to admit it. I do wear my emotions on my sleeves with the Dolphins. I have no shame in that. I'll admit it. I'm being emotional. I know the things that I think right now aren't going to be the things that I think in a day or two, I'm sure. But ultimately, I'm more concerned with, Michael, kind of like what you said, is it's a scary thought to think about this team and the offseason and how far over the cap they are and having to pay Tua. And I'd rather agonize over this loss to the Bills than think about that right now, honestly. If we're being just as positive as can be about next week in Kansas City, and I'll give you props, Michael, you're a better man than me about that, to talk positively there. I can see a world in which the Dolphins, for some reason, Mike McDaniel sees the light, doesn't abandon the run game. I can see a world in which the Dolphins do beat the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just right now, I don't think that world is the one that we're living on at the moment. But I'm hoping to get there again by next Sunday by game time, or next Saturday night. And to be fair, part of the reason why I'm so down on the rest of the season is the injuries. Like if they had Chubb and they had Phillips and they had some of these guys, I would say, you know what, you can go ahead and they can still do something this season. It's just without those guys. I mean, you're going into these games, outgunned and outmanned, which I get it. You're not going to have the talent advantage on paper in every single game that you play against almost any team in the NFL. But ultimately, it's just this whole thing right now with no pass rush feels like a little bit of an exercise in futility, unless, and you almost got it this week, by the way, in a sea of negativity, that front seven minus those edge rushers that we were complaining about not having, those guys earn their money and then some.
Mm-hmm.
Jerome Baker, I know that he's kind of one of those guys that you look at this offseason as an easy money-saving move. If this was his last regular season game as a Miami Dolphin,
it wasn't.
What a game!
You got to extend him.
That play.
By the way,
yeah.
Somebody pointed out something that I feel like we should point out. Parrish Stevens, we punted on 4th and inches.
Yeah.
That's not on Tua. That's on McDaniel. McDaniel was coach. I would argue that McDaniel was coaching scared. Like he didn't trust his own offense.
What concerns me about that is, man, Mike McDaniel got out-coached by Sean McDermott, and you should hear some of the things that the Bills fans say about Sean McDermott. That's what worries me. That's a scary thought.
I mean, Mike McDaniel's has beaten Super Bowl winning coaches in the past.
He has.
There was a time that we were looking at him and saying, "Look at all the Super Bowl winning coaches that Mike McDaniel has out-coached," and we just kind of gloss over that. We want to talk about coaching. Bill Belichick is considered by many to be the greatest coach of all time. I don't agree with it, but many people view him that way. New England just had the worst season they've ever had since 1992. If he's so great, why couldn't he overcome the talent that he had? You can't. And this is why I feel like we won't want to talk about injuries as the excuse. We don't want to talk about injuries as the reason Miami can't get past these big games. We don't want to talk about injuries like they're a reason that we can look at and say, well, that's why this happened. Think about all the talent Miami did not have on offense. We managed to get Robert Jones. We actually got Robert Hunt back. We had him back, and the running game got a boost for it. But at the same time, you could tell he was rusty. Because he was making mistakes that's very uncharacteristic of Robert Hunt. I'm not going to say that was the reason Miami lost, obviously. But you don't have Jalen Waddle, and that hurts. You don't have again, I keep saying this, you don't have a reliable third option. The entire game, most of the game, Miami had Tyreek Hill. And in those moments where Tyreek was available, Tua was throwing to Tyreek. Because that's the only guy that you can look at and say, I know he's going to be open. The same thing with Josh Allen. With Josh Allen, he always tries to rely on Stefon Diggs. The moment he saw Stefon Diggs racing down the field open, guess who launched it to? Stefon Diggs. He will always look for Stefon Diggs. That's his guy. That's his number one receiver. That's expected. And if he hadn't overthrown him, it would have been a touchdown because Jalen Ramsey beat him. Because Jalen Ramsey got beat by him. Jalen Ramsey, for the most part, locked down Stefon Diggs. So he had to find other guys to throw the ball to. He found a dude who is Tyreek-esque in the fact that he's really, really fast in that guy, Kashir. And he beat Eli Apple how many times? It's kind of scary. You had Dalton Kincaid, who as a tight end is a mismatch maker all over the place. Why is Melvin Ingram covering him? Because you have and I'm not even, right. That's what I'm saying. I'm not even blaming Vic Fangio for that because it's like, you have no bodies left. Like that's at that point, it's like you're stuck. But Josh Allen has targets. He can get it to Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox can do whatever he can, make catches. So can Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid's whole bread and butter. He was drafted because of his ability to make catches. He's a wide receiver. He's Mike Gesicki, who doesn't look like a giraffe when he runs with the football. That's what Dalton Kincaid is. And you notice that in many ways, Josh Allen did have to do it all by himself. He really did. He did it all by himself. He was running with the football so often because he couldn't find anybody open. That's credit to Vic Fangio and his defense for doing what he did. But again, that's an aspect of his game that Tua doesn't have. He can just run with it, and he'll be able to get the first down whenever he feels like it.
That 3rd and 13 or 3rd and 15 or whatever it was on that final drive, aside from taking knees, that final drive
is something that we've seen him do to us hundreds of times, bro.
And it's
not even a surprise. I knew as soon as he took off with it, he was going to get it.
And that changes the complexion of what the Dolphins would have been able to do with their final drive, where there wouldn't be as much pressing as there was when they were going by, because you would have had a lot more time. I think that was with 3.5 minutes left or something like that. That was an absolute backbreaker. Even if the Dolphins got the ball back, that was a backbreaker.
I would like to just mention. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just speaking on that last Buffalo drive, the referees missing Josh Allen putting his hand down out of bounds was a big factor in that as well. Again, that's not to give the team excuses, but it is a contributing factor as to why they didn't have more time at the end. It's just another thing that adds on to it.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to point out we're talking about Tua like he's a finished product, right? Like this is the best he's ever going to be, right? Is that what we're assuming?
My only concern is once he gets paid, the roster around him is only going to get worse. He might get better,
but Tua himself,
but the rosters are going to get worse.
Okay, but that's the point, though, isn't it? Is that even if Tua himself has a worse roster around him, he continues to improve. This is his 2nd year in this offense. How long has Dak Prescott been in the NFL?
I think he's 8 or 9 years.
He's 30 years old as of now. He was born 1 month after. He was technically 2 months if you want to get really like nitty gritty about the years. He's a couple years younger than I am, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Dak Prescott has been in the NFL. Let me just pull it up here real quick because I'm trying to get the actual numbers here for everybody. It's difficult to find it. Okay, here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is his 8th year in the NFL. Just now, only now, are we looking at Dak Prescott and talking about just how he was worthy of an MVP caliber season. Up until this point, everybody been looking at him funny. Like, are you really the guy? Are you really the dude? Are you really the man who can bring the Cowboys a Super Bowl? A lot of people still think he's not the answer. And then there are some people who are praising him for leading the offense that he's got to something miraculous. This is year 8 for Dak Prescott. Year 8. This is Tua's fourth year in the NFL.
You can kind of throw away those first 2 at that.
And there's that. Yeah, you can throw away the Brian Flores years because the man was being sabotaged the entire way.
People get better at their jobs, you know, and in any industry, people get better at their jobs. And if you look at Tua got better from his second year, the final year with Flores, to his first year with McDaniel, got tons better, was a Pro Bowl selection. Not that meant much last year.
It doesn't mean anything to anybody. No, like
Pro Bowl selection last year. But we can all agree, I mean, even Bills and Patriots and Jets fans can agree Tua was infinitely better in 2023 than he was in 2022. I mean, the guy, I may be wrong on this, but I believe he ended up finishing the year as number 1 in completion percentage and yards. And he's one of the better quarterbacks in terms of yards per attempt, like air yards per attempt. And so he got a lot better from year 3 to year 4. why consider him a finished product? I don't see how anyone could after 4 years. Why he can't get better in year 5 and so forth. Though Eric's point remains that a lot of times you are as good as the talent is around you. And when you start losing offensive linemen, you start losing receivers, you start having
okay, so but that's where you keep, but hold on, Michael, hold on. Because we're just assuming that we're gonna suddenly just regress so badly. If we're gonna look at this from a real perspective here, okay? You have to pay Tua. Okay, fine. You have to pay Tua. You still have Tyreek Hill, who's going to be around for at least a couple more seasons because he just is. You're going to pay him. Jalen Waddle's still on his rookie contract. You're going to try to keep him around eventually. As far as offense goes, those are the only two guys that Tua can rely on anyway. So the only thing you're really going to do is you're going to churn that middle of the roster to try to find somebody who's more reliable as a third option. And maybe if you're lucky, you get somebody who can replace Tyreek later on. Because do you want to keep Cedric Wilson another year? It's a serious question.
No, but he's not the guy. That's not. He's
okay.
irrelevant.
But I'm leading to somewhere here. Yes or no?
Okay.
You'll keep Cedric Wilson? I can't. Eric froze on me. Hello.
I'm back. I'm here.
Okay, Cedric Wilson on the team next year?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
No.
You want to keep Cedric? Gone. Okay, so no Cedric Wilson. Okay, fine. So that's one receiver that you're gone. All right. Do you want to keep Braxton Berrios another year?
He's under he doesn't even make enough that I would care all that much, really, one way or the other.
Okay, so let's take a look at Braxton Berrios' contract, right? Let's do that real quick. Signed a 2-year, $12 million contract. Oh, wait, that's with the Jets. I'm sorry. Hold on. What is he making? No, he's a free agent. Do you want to bring back Braxton Berrios?
Okay. I don't really care to.
Okay. Hasta la bye Braxton Berrios. Don't care. All right. Do you want to keep Chase Claypool?
No.
Okay. So far we have just acknowledged that Tua's really only two targets that he can look at, that he can rely on, are Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Both are hurt. Jalen did not even play. The only one on this list of wide receivers that I would want to keep, oh, look, here's a name I didn't even remember was on the team. You want Robbie Chosen back?
Also negligible.
So moot, irrelevant. Get him off the team. He's not. He doesn't do anything useful. So that leaves Miami with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and the only one on this whole crew besides Tua and Tyreek that I'd want to keep. You just said the man's name, River Craycraft. But River Craycraft is not a receiver. He's an extra blocker so that running backs can get open lanes. And we know that. We acknowledge that.
I guess
he's crucial, but he's not a receiver.
Right.
So what Miami needs to do, if we're being dead honest, I'm being dead honest about this. If Miami wants to get better next season, Miami needs to draft a wide receiver.
Okay.
They really do. They need to draft a wide receiver.
Follow-up question. If you had to prioritize in the draft right now, Teron Armstead's replacement or a third wide receiver?
I think third wide receiver.
I disagree there. You
know why?
You got to save that. If you're going to extend Tua, you can't spend that money.
Eric, we just watched a whole season where we were praising Butch Berry for making something out of nothing. We still have young players on this roster who we were impressed by their ability to do what they did. Keon Smith was inactive. Keon Smith looked in his relatively limited snaps, looked honestly phenomenal for a dude that was trying to replace an all-pro left tackle. This is a young player developing. You don't need, we got by with Kendall Lamb at left tackle. And the drop off, huh? Say again? You keep cutting out, bro. I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead. No, sorry. You were talking about Keon Smith. I was acknowledging, yes, he could get better.
Because we already saw that he was doing very well. We already drafted Ryan Hayes, and I'm not saying Ryan Hayes is the answer, but from what we saw of him, he did pretty good at left tackle. So let's see we're still going to have Armstead for one more season anyway. It doesn't matter. He's sticking around for at least one more year. So that's moot.
I got to restructure him or something at least.
He's staying around. If you restructure him, you keep him longer. You want to eat this last year and then get rid of him.
I just want to save the money, really, more than anything. Honestly, it has nothing to do with Teron Armstead, the player, to me. I understand what you're getting at with Lamb and with Keon Smith, and those guys could get better. I'm sorry, man. I'm going to pay Tua $250 million, and then I'm going to protect him with Keon Smith.
Eric,
Eric, I don't. It doesn't. I get it, but I got to see more from Keon Smith before I give him the keys to the car.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But understand something. The reason that this offense was functioning as it was because Tua was getting the ball out in less than 2 seconds, bro. The offensive line at that point wasn't really much of a factor. But you know why he was able to do it in less than 2 seconds? Because he knew that Tyreek would be where he needed to be. He knew that Jalen Waddle would be where he needed to be. And he, relatively speaking, could trust them to make a play. If his accuracy was just a little bit off, his wide receivers could help and make a big play. Once you lose that, the whole offense falls on its face. That's it. You can't trust Chase Claypool. Did you see the route he ran? It was awful. There are even literally people saying, I don't care that he ran a bad route. That's Tua's fault. Like, that's the whole point. He's throwing to... You remember why we hated Ryan Tannehill? Because he threw to people, not to spots. Now we have a guy who throws to spots, and we're mad that he won't throw to people. So you can't... If you expect...
A little bit of both.
That's the problem, Eric.
I know.
The offense runs as far as... you can trust your receivers to do their part. So Tua was throwing to a spot that he was expecting Chase Claypool to be. Chase Claypool was not there because he hooked around his whole route. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Like, he basically made it so that there was no way that anybody except that safety was going to make that defense. So, and again, I looked at that replay. I'm like, Tua can't go anywhere with it. There's nowhere to throw to. Like, Braxton Berrios is the only option, and he's like 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And that's going to do what with the clock ticking down to nothing? And even then, he was really heavily guarded. You can't throw it to Berrios. You can't trust Claypool. And you can't trust Cedric Wilson because he can't make separation. What is Tua supposed to do? Launch it up there and pray.
Anything, maybe.
Launch it up there and pray. You don't have time for that. You don't. Your whole offense is the offense is predicated on players being where they need to be. Tua does exactly what Mike McDaniel wants him to do. He throws to where the ball is supposed to go. Chase Claypool ran a rotten route. Everybody's been saying he's been like, if you even look at it, just looking at the last play, everybody's just hyper focusing on the interception that happened. The people who are actually looking at the play itself and looking at what went wrong, they're looking at Chase Claypool and being, what the hell is he doing? And that matters. That matters. Josh Allen has open guys to throw to all the doggone time. That helps him a lot. It really does. So, and if you don't have to try that hard to find open guys, then you don't have to worry so much. Tua, as soon as Tyreek and Jalen are gone, I hate to bring it to this level, but if you think about it, we're basically back down to what it was during the Brian Flores years, when he's throwing to Lynn Bowden Jr., Malcolm Perry, and who was the other guy? I don't even remember who the other guy was. Like, that's what it boils down to. Cedric Wilson was Dallas's third receiver before he came to Miami. And we brought him in to be our number 2 to Jalen Waddle. And that was before Tyreek showed up.
Put some respect on Mac Hollins' name. How dare you?
Oh, listen, man, I honestly forgot about Mac. But even then, it's like Mac Hollins is not somebody that you go to as... I wouldn't put Mac Hollins in this offense unless he's acting as a blocker.
Arthur Smith.
Matt Collins will be River Craycraft in our offense.
Arthur Smith constructs the whole Falcons offense around Matt Collins.
That's kind of scary, isn't it? Did it work out so good for him? Nope.
Yeah.
Honestly, I get where Mike McDaniel's coming from when he says he wants weapons, because that's what Tua needs. That's what Tua functions on. You don't have to worry about getting hyper strength offensive linemen. You really don't. You just need to get guys who can get separation and give Tua a spot to throw to. So yes, I would absolutely get a wide receiver in the draft if that's what I'm doing, because I'm looking for a dude that Tua can say, guess what? I can put my shoulder on you and I can say, I can count on you when the time comes. He can already count on Jalen. He can count on Tyreek. He needs a third guy, because if anything happens to those two guys, I don't want to say this makes it feel like that. Yeah, Tyreek was the MVP of the team. Okay, fine, whatever. But you want to go there, that's fine. So if that's the case, though, understand that it's the wide receivers that make this offense go. And Tua is the guy that is the vessel for how they get the football. Nobody else does it better than him. We can say that. We know that Mike White wouldn't be able to be as accurate as Tua. We know Skylar Thompson can't be as accurate as Tua. So it all works in tandem. They all, I wouldn't be surprised if Tua has sleepovers in the wide receiver room whenever they're doing their film room, because they probably hang out a lot. Tua needs weapons to function. Fine. Doesn't every quarterback? Stefon Diggs was there for Josh Allen the entire way. It helps him a lot to know that he can count on Stefon Diggs. And when he's not in sync with Stefon Diggs, did you notice how much Buffalo had to rely on Josh Allen's legs in these past few weeks in order to get these wins that they squeaked out? And if we're being honest, they squeaked out this win too. Let's be real. They got away with the fact that they scored one more touchdown than Miami did. They didn't dominate the whole game. It was just that fourth quarter that everything just went Buffalo's way. I'm looking at it. It did. It did. Miami had the game locked down, it felt like, and then everything just fell apart instantaneously.
I'm sorry to do this to you, Lewis, and I hate to just I don't take pleasure in bashing the Dolphins over the head repeatedly, believe it or not. I know that's crazy that sounds crazy based on the way that I've been talking, but that just illustrates an even further point, man. This is the weakest Bills team of their AFC East run over these last few years. And this is a really good Dolphins team. Injured, I get it.
Bro, it's a...
But this was the worst Bills team.
Yes, it was the worst Bills
team.
It was the worst Bills team, and this is the worst the Dolphins have been all year. Go ahead, Mike.
I may go dark momentarily.
Walk away and go get your charger, bro. I'm not going to kick you off the show because you walked away to get your charger.
I do want to make one point at least, though, and that's the thing that's giving me existential dread right now isn't the injuries, isn't the path, it isn't even losing tonight. It's the fact that tonight wouldn't have mattered if they didn't blow the lead against the Titans. That I keep thinking about time after time after time tonight. I just keep going back to that tonight wouldn't have mattered. But alas, here we are.
Go get your charger, Mike. For real.
Y'all are gonna see my Zubas as I leave the room.
Okay, whatever. That's fine, bro. Whatever.
That's fine.
We all watch in our own. I'm wearing a Bass Pro Shops hoodie because it keeps me warm. That's my fiance likes it really cold. But either way, at the end of the day, this is where I feel like if we want to fix the Dolphins, right? This is what we need to do. I've wanted them to be more physical. I've been begging them to be more physical. And with a little while, it looked like they were actually doing it. Jeff Wilson, he was running the football through in between the tackles, making incredible progress in the run game. And then miraculously, it stopped. It just stopped. I don't know why it stopped, but it did. That's on Mike McDaniel. He's going to have to learn and grow as a head coach. He is. I don't believe that, unless you show that you are incompetent in year one, I don't believe that this is just the end result of Mike McDaniel. We saw Adam Gase, and we saw the problems immediately, and we saw that, oh, wait a minute, hold on. These are problems that, yeah, we might be able to overcome, but this could be a problem if this happens. But instead of trying to fix it, Adam Gase doubled down on it. Brian Flores doubled down on his mistakes. McDaniel, at least in year 2 here, he said he wanted to commit to the run game more, and for a while he kind of did, but he fell back into another bad habit. And so then things went sour for him. So McDaniel at least made the attempt to adapt. Gase and Flores never did. Never. They never adapted. They just doubled down on what they believed. McDaniel at least has tried to adapt. You know, he falls back into bad habits. And that, I think, eventually he will learn. It's like, okay, I see that it's working, but I don't do it because I just really want to do this thing. I will try my best to not do it again in year 3. So in that regard, I still have faith in McDaniel to learn and grow from this experience. I didn't have that kind of faith in Adam Gase and Brian Flores because you could tell how stubborn they were. There's a lot to take from all this. And I think the biggest thing for me is that I'm not giving up on Tua. I'm really not. I'm not giving up on Tua. I refuse to give up on Tua. For all the people who says that Tua sucks, he doesn't suck. He doesn't. He's been the only, think about this. He's the only Dolphins quarterback been voted to a Pro Bowl. And I know the Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but as far as voting goes, he is the only Dolphins quarterback who has been voted to a Pro Bowl since Marino. The only one. Marino retired 24 years ago. And there hasn't been a single Dolphins quarterback who made the Pro Bowl since Tua. Nobody. That has to count for something, at least in the eyes of what is he capable of. He is at least capable of putting up numbers that say, hey, we might have something here. That's something. Tua does not deserve to be raked through the coals because this happened against the Buffalo Bills. We knew Josh Allen has our number, and he did it again. In spite of his turnovers, guess what he did? He did it again. It's always what he does. So I don't look at Josh Allen as being the referendum on Tua's career in Miami. I don't. I think he deserves an extension. I really do. I feel like he deserves to continue to be built around, just like Dallas for years now has attempted to build around Dak Prescott. And only now is Dak Prescott being looked at as, ooh, this could be real MVP candidacy here. It's 8 years for Dak now. I don't want to say we need to wait 8 years for Tua. I feel like we should be able to make our decision sooner than that. I would like to say that. But even then, I keep coming back to this one last point too. And then if you guys want to have some more to say, I'll let you guys have more to say. It took Drew Brees 6 years to become the Drew Brees that we know and revere. Before then, everybody had the same questions about him. Is he good enough? Is he strong enough? Does he have a good enough arm? Is he accurate enough? Can he stay healthy enough? All the exact questions that we're asking Tua now. You want to say it's 2.5 years for Tua? You want to say it's 4 years for Tua based on his actual numbers? You want to say that it's only 2 years because he's with McDaniel and his career got a reset? You can put it however you want. Drew Brees took 6 years to become that guy. There's no getting around that. All the same questions that we have about Tua now, people were still asking about Drew Brees 6 years into his career. And people saying Brees is not the norm. No, of course he's not the norm. That's why he's Drew Brees. But you see all the same traits. You see all the same, I guess, mold of Drew Brees in Tua. You really do. And that was the whole point, is that from day one, we said Tua is left-handed Drew Brees. But again, I keep saying this. Understand that if you want to go ahead and say that we have a Drew Brees, you have to deal with the same growing pains that we had with Drew Brees. Before the season started, we were talking about the only thing that we had question marks about Tua was, can he stay healthy through the whole season? Guess what? He did it. He stayed healthy the whole season. He didn't miss a game. And the only time he got benched was when the Dolphins had already won the game and it didn't matter. So now the question marks are back again. Is he clutch? Can he do it in the big moments? He can when he has somebody he can count on. But that's just it. You need somebody to count on. Tyreek was gone. Jalen was gone. And in that last play to end the game, his 3 options were options that most NFL teams would not even look at as their 4th option. We were hoping that Braxton Berrios would develop in this offense. He has not. He hasn't. And he's, as a kick returner and a punt returner, I'm not seeing anything special there. I'd rather have Jakeem Grant back. That's my honest truth on that. Because at least Jakeem Grant could break a big one every once in a while. As far as Chase Claypool goes, that was an attempt that we were hoping that maybe there was something there. Claypool is a jump up and go get it receiver. He doesn't fit this offense. And as for Cedric Wilson, kind of the same thing. He doesn't get separation. He's not fast. Miami needs to rework what weapons Tua has. He needs guys that he can count on because Tua needs guys like Tyreek and Jalen, not necessarily because they're supremely talented and they're faster than everybody. Robbie Chosen's fast, but he doesn't get separation either. Like, you need guys who you can count on and say, I will make the big play for you. And I get that that's a lot to ask for, but when you have nobody, it's very hard for any quarterback to find success. That's my last point. So you guys can go ahead and have your pieces, then we'll call it a night.
So I just want to go back to the Dak thing, and I want to touch on that really quickly. And I just want to say one thing, and I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say. What is the one aspect, and I get it, post-injury, it's not the same, but what is the one aspect that Dak Prescott has that he doesn't rely on as much as he did earlier in his career, but he can still pull it out when he needs it? It's his legs. It's his legs. And I'm not saying that that's the only way you can be successful as a quarterback, but if that's a tool that Tua is not going to have in his toolbox over the next 4, 5, 6 years, it does seriously hamper his ability to help the team win games. He has to be that much better than Josh Allen and Dak Prescott and those other guys. That's the only thing that I'll say there is Tua has to be levels better than those guys at what he does because he doesn't have that added physical element to his game. And that's the one thing that it's just hard to fathom that he's going to be that much better than those guys.
Michael?
Yeah, for me, as I said earlier in the show, I'm not looking at tonight through the prism of the big picture. It's an 11-6 team with the context of 3-game lead in the division with 5 games left. Yeah, not great to finish in the 6th spot. Obviously, as I mentioned, that Titans loss looms tonight, falling apart in the second half, mostly the 4th quarter. That's brutal. But for me, I'll leave should we get rid of Tua? Should we fire Chris Greer? Should we fire Mike McDaniel? I'll leave that to the night of the loss Twitter, where people air out emotions and then delete tweets the next day, or Colin Cowherd, who's going to have to be reminded of the other quarterbacks who play in the league tomorrow as he fires off some Tua take, I'm sure. Yeah, for me, it's obviously a disappointing loss, and I would have liked to see what this team's ceiling was for the year if they didn't have injury after injury. And there's something to be said for another show in the future about putting together a roster that's filled with guys who are injury prone, because we've seen injuries from Bradley Chubb in the past, from Jalen Phillips in the past, from Terran Armstead in the past, and then we're shocked when guys are out. But for me, I am still optimistic about the Kansas City game already. I'm I don't think that that's a bad matchup, even with the injuries that have occurred. It'll be interesting to see if the Dolphins do pick up an edge rusher early this week who could be available for next week. Similar to how they picked Melvin Ingram up off the street. But yeah, I'm still optimistic for next week. I'm sure it'll be tough coming down, going to sleep. Lewis, I think you may have to take a couple melatonin tonight. I think to get the heart rate down to a rate where you can get a good night's sleep. And I may be a little bit with you, but I think the Dolphins still have a chance next weekend.
Miami has a chance, absolutely. I'm not saying they don't have a chance. I don't think they'll win. That's my honest truth. I think they're going to lose. It's in Kansas City. But the honest truth is that if you get Jalen Waddle back, which Mike McDaniel says in his press conference, he's optimistic he'll have him back. If he thinks he'll have Raheem Mostert back, if Robert Hunt comes back again, if we get most of our guys that we need back, there's still a chance. Absolutely. But it kind of boils down to having Tyreek and Jalen. You need Tyreek and Jalen. That's the only way this offense is going to work. And by the way, it's not just Tyreek and Jalen, because it can't be just, Mike White with Tyreek and Jalen. No, it doesn't work. You need Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen. You need all three of them. You need them. That's how the offense works. If they're not out there, it's that much harder, because your only real target that you can count on reliably, unless they're willing to fight through unless they're fighting through it, it's Tyreek. Tyreek's the only one that's always open. You throw to Cedric Wilson, you see him blanketed all the time. You guys watched the same game I did. You saw that. How often was Cedric Wilson wide open? Ever? Was he ever open? Really? Was he ever truly open? He hit Cedric Wilson down the field once, a perfect pass in his breadbasket, and even then there was a defender right there with him the whole way. Like it had to have been beyond perfect, and it was. But Braxton Berrios wasn't open most of the time. In the rare moments that he was, Tua found him. But again, rare moments. Tua finds open guys. He doesn't like throwing contested shots unless it's a deep bomb and he thinks that his receiver might get a step on it. He doesn't like doing that. That's not it, and I get it, because that's always been his bread and butter. He finds open dudes. That's what Drew Brees did. He finds open dudes. He had Jimmy Graham to count on in the moments where there wasn't an open dude. But again, that's Jimmy Graham in his prime that he could count on. A dude who was 6'5" and can leap up ahead of everybody else. And he was a superstar tight end / receiver at that time in his career. There were very few people who were trying to figure out who was better than Jimmy Graham. Some people were saying Gronk. And again, that's in their primes. I get you guys are tired. We're gonna call it here. You can't expect Tua to trust these dudes when all year long they've shown that unless they just so happen to be open, they're not a reliable target. They're not. Braxton Berrios is not reliable. You guys would agree with that, I think. You can't rely on Cedric Wilson. You can't rely on Chase Claypool. You can't, for a while, we were impressed with Eric Ezukanma because he was doing very Deebo Samuel-ish stuff early in the season, and then something happened to him. I don't know. And I see people saying comparing Tua to Brees is like comparing Allen to Montana. What? How is Josh Allen anywhere remotely the same player as Joe Montana?
I think that's I think that he's trying to say that they're not similar, which Tua and Brees are at least similar. I'll at least give you guys that.
Yeah, right. Josh Allen would be. I don't get it. Do they not have the same skill set? Do they not have the same limitations that go with their skill sets? I'm trying to figure out how they're not similar. But hell, even right now, even their career trajectory seems to be similar. So we're going to go ahead and call it here. It's past midnight. I know you guys are tired. So maybe you two even have work in the morning. I don't know. So I appreciate you staying with me all this time. I really do. And for all of you in the chats, even though you guys have ripped me a new you-know-what all this time, I still appreciate you guys for coming and just talking with us. while we break this whole thing down. I still believe what I believe. I will have Fins Nation on Tuesday because I'm not recording now. I'm exhausted. And you guys will have something to enjoy after that. I'm going to continue to make my case. I'm still a believer in Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not part of the cult of Tua. I'm not part of Tuanon. But I am not somebody who looks at Tua and says that he's either going to win the game by himself or he's going to lose the game by himself. I've never, ever bought into that mindset. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Those are the only three wide receivers. Those are the only three quarterbacks in the NFL who can win a game by themselves. And you know why. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening with all this. We will see you guys soon. Saturday on Peacock is where the Miami Dolphins are going to be playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen,
I am so glad.
Mike, did you not watch the game, bro? Did you not watch the game?
Be able to see this.
Did you not watch the game, Michael? They were only talking about how make sure you get Peacock all game long. I wanted to pluck the feathers off that Peacock because I was so sick of hearing about it.
They're holding us hostage.
Yep. So go grab actually no, you guys know what I'm thinking, so I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to suddenly get demonetized by YouTube for promoting something that shouldn't be done. So we will see you all next week for more yard prep and final yard.